Welcome to episode 122 of the Various and Sundry podcast. I am your host, Matt Harmon, joined live from the Vault Studio on the beautiful campus of Grace College and Theological Seminary by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who was in North Carolina this weekend, John Scott Sloat.
Yeah, one of my wife's friends got married, or didn't get married. They got married 2 years ago, and we're just having a ceremony because he's from North Carolina. So they had a ceremony in North Carolina. I did not know that, though.
Okay.
And so I'm sitting at the wedding ceremony thinking,
like, this is the real deal.
this is it.
Yeah.
And then they go, actually, we got married 2 years ago in a ceremony. And I leaned over to Andrea. I was like, did you know that? And she goes, yes, I did. What?
And was this a simple accidental omission, or had she told you this and you had just not maybe
It was
locked that
a
in?
simple omission.
Okay.
Yeah. Not that we would have gone either way.
Okay.
You know, that doesn't change anything for us. But
Yeah.
it was
I mean, there are other people. There are other people down there that you went to see, so you could
Yes.
sort of double dip on the.
yes.
on
Andrea's
that trip.
sister was down there. We got to meet her boyfriend. That was very exciting. And then we got to see my brother, his wife, and my niece down there.
Yeah, big weekend, Thursday through Sunday. So
Yeah,
extended
Took
weekend.
the last 2 days of the week off last week.
Yeah,
It was good.
it's amazing the institution continued to operate without you, given all the things you have your hands in around here.
Well, you know, it was just 2 days. You know, I wouldn't dare take a week or anything like that.
Yeah.
Who knows what would happen?
Yeah. The whole operation would fall apart. So if you would like to prevent our operation from falling apart, you can reach out to us on Twitter at VNSPod. You can email the show, variousandsunderypodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube. And we would love for you to leave a 5-star rating and a review if you would feel so inclined.
And we had some Twitter chatter over the weekend
We did.
on our channel about the NFL draft,
Yes. Yes, we did.
which we'll get to in a few minutes.
Yeah.
But it was active this weekend.
Yeah, it was. It was. We also had some behind-the-scenes chatter with Nate from Ohio and Zach from Ohio,
Yes.
given the fact that we called him out last week.
We called out Zach for
Zach,
his
yes.
lip sweater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And he's refused to get rid of it at this point.
he
it
is
seems.
stubbornly unrepentant.
It seems like he's doubling down
Yeah. Yeah.
despite our pleas.
Despite many people's pleas.
And shaming. Let's be real.
Yeah, he even brought his kids into it. It was just shameless. So, all right, let's talk some. We'll talk briefly about NBA playoffs. On to the second round now. Bucks and Celtics, Sixers and Heat, Memphis and Golden State, and the Mavs and the Suns. Did you catch any of the NBA playoffs?
I caught the end of the Memphis Golden State game
Last night.
last night. Yep. I was at the airport, was at a restaurant, and there were two gentlemen, very passionate, one for one team, one for the other. I think that they both had money on the game,
Yeah.
one for the Golden State, one for Memphis, and they were just
Okay.
going back and forth.
Yeah, it was an entertaining game. I did catch most of that one, including the end. But yeah, it's just hard for me to envision Memphis winning that series. Golden
Sure.
State is, I think, significantly better, even though Memphis is the 2 seed and Golden State is the 3. Did you see, by the way, the flagrant foul 2 that got Draymond Green kicked out?
No, I missed that.
That was in the first half, so if you might.
I caught the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting because at first glance it looked like a flagrant 1, but you know, when you looked at it again, I guess they saw some other stuff going on there. But I was not sad to see Draymond Green go. And of course, once they told him that he was ejected, he ran around the court literally like a buffoon, like motioning to the crowd, and because it's in Memphis, so he's stirring up the opponent's crowd.
Classic Draymond.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a good discussion with – this is a little side note. I had a good discussion with my son Jake about a possible segment.
For the show?
Yeah, for the show.
Okay.
Top 5 – we were talking NBA players, but we could expand it out to athlete. Top 5 athletes that you would like to slap.
Oh my goodness.
Basically, the top 5 athletes that like annoy the crud out of you.
Yeah.
And you know.
That might be a good
metaphorically.
Not
smack.
literally slap.
Yes.
Slap with words.
Yes. So anyway.
That might be a good summer topic. I'm going to need like a good 2 hours to dive into that.
Jake and I had a great discussion about that in terms of – but spoiler alert, Draymond Green is definitively on that list.
He makes the top 5.
Yes. Let's move on to baseball quickly because there's a couple notes about your beloved Mets.
Yeah, so we've won our first 7 series now, which I think we're the only team in baseball to do that right now. Mm-hmm. And so we're in first place, playing really well. There was a no-hitter thrown on Friday night.
Yeah.
Combined no-hitter.
Yeah. Again, my traditionalist sensibilities are offended, but was it just 2 guys? Or
no, it was 5.
Oh my word!
Yeah, it was 5 guys, and not the good burger place. But James McCann, the catcher, he had caught a no-hitter already when he was with the White Sox with 1 guy, and he got the home plate from that, and so he has requested the home plate from because he's the staple in that in those 5 pitchers, right? He was the only one catching, so I think he's getting the home plate from that no-hitter.
Gotcha.
And then there was I see it on the rundown here. There was a fight.
Yeah.
A fisticuffs between the Mets and the Cardinals last week.
Yeah.
The Mets have been hit 20 times this season, and the next close is like 12.
Okay.
So they've been hit a lot, 3 times in the head.
Yeah.
Pete Alonso has been hit twice in the head.
Is there something particularly offensive about Pete that attracts such?
He's a brash dude.
Okay.
So maybe. It feels like he's trying to
antagonize, provoke?
Maybe, or trying to like channel the 86 Mets a little bit, maybe without the drugs, but
hopefully.
but trying to channel sort of that swagger. And but I don't think it's intentional. I mean, everybody's blaming the baseballs are not good. Pitchers are going for more speed and less control. Mm-hmm. And guys are getting hit because of it. So yeah, so Pete in one game, Pete got hit in the head and immediately got up and ran to first, like it's normal.
Yeah.
And then the next game, they came a little high and tight on one of the Cardinals stars, and he took exception to that. And
yeah. Yes, baseball.
The benches cleared, and there was some good shoving.
Yeah.
It wasn't like an old school fight, but it also wasn't like, okay, let's all get out here and talk and calm down the one guy that's upset. Everybody was upset, and the teams were pushing and shoving, but no punches thrown. There was a tackle in there.
Okay. Speaking of tackling, let's move on to the NFL draft.
Sure.
My worst fears were realized in the NFL draft, John. Your beloved Jets, Jets drafted Garrett Wilson.
Yeah. Do you want to do a brief history of Jets drafting Ohio State wide receivers?
I mean, it's a Monday morning, but I'm not sure I want to go down that dark rabbit hole. But yeah, gosh. And then, as if that wasn't enough. Now, let me get this. I think Garrett Wilson might be the best receiver Ohio State's produced in a decade plus, just in terms of raw talent. And route running, body control, athleticism, ball skills, fabulous.
I will also say he is on a more talented Jets team now, offense, than anybody else in the last 10 years that has been drafted by the Jets.
I hope so.
Yeah.
And then in the later rounds, is it third round, fourth round? I can't remember.
Third round, I think.
The Jets drafted Ohio State tight end Jeremy Ruckert.
Yeah, who grew up a Jets fan.
Yes. Yeah. That's just heartbreaking to me.
Yeah, his dad posted a photo on Twitter of him wearing a Curtis Martin jersey at Christmas when he was a kid.
Yeah.
Heartwarming,
heartbreaking, kind of depends on your perspective, I guess. Yeah. He will be a better professional tight end than he was in college. Ohio State just criminally underuses their tight ends. So he is very talented, a very good receiver. I read one analysis where it was like, not a game-changing do you really expect your tight end to be the besides Gronk?
Sure.
Like, how many tight ends in the NFL are you like, oh man, he is the game changer? You're not expecting that typically out of your tight end. You want a guy that can block well and is a good receiver and stretches the the field width-wise typically in terms of forcing mismatches against linebackers and safeties and that sort of thing.
Run a good route to get you the first down.
Yeah.
Right? Get open. Be a big target.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how pleased were you with your NFL?
So I'm a little alarmed. The grades have come out, which draft grades are a joke.
They're worthless. Worthless. That's maybe strong. Almost worthless.
So I used to always go that way because the Jets would always have like a C or a C minus. And I would just be like, these aren't real. Wait 3 years, then grade the draft. But we were getting A's from everybody. And we were right up there with the Baltimore Ravens that feel like the best people that draft. The greatest organization at drafting. I felt pretty good. We had 3 first-round draft picks. We got Sauce Gardner.
A little sauce on the defense now.
Yeah. Did you see the chains he was wearing at the NFL draft?
No.
He had one that said Sauce, and then he had one that just looked kind of like a ketchup bottle. And they were all bedazzled in like diamonds, and he wore them on stage. Then we got Garrett Wilson, and then we got Jermaine Johnson. They're very excited about him playing the defensive line, and hopefully we're able to get after the quarterback a little bit more.
Yeah. When the Jets drafted Garrett Wilson, that did provoke some Twitter interaction.
Oh, I got a ton of text. So I got 3 or 4 texts about the Jets drafting Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, he's terrific. I mean,
Do you like the ring of Wilson to Wilson?
Yeah, sure.
Zach Wilson to Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, I mean, I think we also have to note that you had Ohio State receivers going back-to-back in the draft. Garrett Wilson at 10, Chris Olave at 11, and then Jamison Williams, who was at Ohio State, transferred to Alabama for his last year. So the numbers 10, 11, and 12 picks, all wide receivers, all were in the same wide receiver room at Ohio State.
Wow.
Just remarkable. And the scary thing is Jackson Smith and Jigma, who's going to come out next year, is probably better than all of them. Like by their own admission. Like you ask those guys, this guy's better than us.
Interesting.
So yeah, crazy. The Ohio State wide receiver coach, if they didn't give him a raise in terms of his recruiting and his talent development, man, that guy needs to be making. It's Brian Hartline. I don't know if you recognize that name. Played in the NFL.
Did he play for the Dolphins?
He did for like
I remember he was
4
like
or 5 years. Just more of a possession receiver.
Yeah, he's like a 5'11", but good possession guy and
good route runner,
scrappy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was and last thing on the draft for me, Chicago Bears. What the heck are you doing?
Oh yeah. There was a lot of talk about how much
you draft a quarterback last year in Justin Fields, and then you don't put anything around him. This was arguably one of the best wide receiver drafts in terms of depth.
So they didn't get a wide receiver. Did they at least get some offensive
linemen? They got
linemen?
a wide receiver, I think, in like the 3rd round, somebody that I'd never heard of.
Okay.
They could have gotten one early in the 2nd round. I think they had a chance to get the Dotson kid from Penn State, who's really good. Early 2nd round, passed on him.
Did they do any offensive linemen?
I don't remember. I was just looking for wide receivers
because that was a big deal last year for Justin Fields. Is they couldn't, he couldn't get a moment. In the pocket.
Yeah. So, see, this is what just drives me crazy about Ohio State quarterbacks. They get drafted to these places where they either can't protect them or they don't put weapons around them, and you're like, well, we don't really know. Like, maybe he could have been good if you had stuff around him. But anyway, enough on the draft. Let's talk about something even more infuriating. How about that?
Sure.
Okay. So we're talking today about an article in The Atlantic. It's entitled let me get the title exactly right here.
It's a great title.
It's a great title. Why the past 10 years of American life have been uniquely stupid.
Yes. One of the things I enjoyed in this article.
By Jonathan, pronounce it Haidt.
Haidt, yes.
Haidt.
Yes. One of the things I enjoy, and this we won't talk about this, and we can talk a little bit more about the author here in just a second, but is how many different ways he used stupid throughout the article. The stupification, things like that.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about Jonathan Haidt? What is he known for?
Yeah. So Jonathan Haidt is a moral psychologist, Jewish atheist, I believe. And he cut his teeth doing psychological research in morality and religion at the University of Virginia. I think since has moved on to NYU and is a professor there. Mm-hmm. In 2015, he wrote the book The Righteous Mind. Have you read that?
2012, according to the –
Oh, is it 2012?
If Wikipedia is to be believed.
Okay. It was the 2015 Book of the Year is what I remember.
Okay. So it took a while maybe to catch on.
Yes. Really, really interesting book. And then probably he really caught fire in, was it 2018, 2019?
2018.
2018 with the book The Coddling of the American Mind that he wrote with Greg Lukianoff.
Something like that, yeah.
Yes. About how we have created a system for students who are I think he uses the term anti-fragile and can't hear voices that are against them, basically.
Yeah.
And how to go about changing this.
Yeah.
And that started first as an Atlantic article and then became a book. Mm-hmm. I think because it was so popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have, I think, skimmed / power read most of that book. Very, very interesting.
Very good.
Very interesting.
He also started – I'm a big Jonathan Haidt fan, obviously, but he started a website called Heterodox Academy, and they have some tools where you can assess your ability to be heterodox in the classroom and those sorts of things. And I've tried to get some of those things started here at Grace and have failed. So I'm not that bitter about it, but I'm a little bitter. So,
well, give me one example of something that you've tried that.
I have tried to get it. I've tried to get the assessment for students, which is free, in 2 different classes, and I have failed.
Okay,
I won't name the classes because then that throws particular professors under the bus. But
so not your own classes.
Not my own classes. No.
Okay.
No, I don't think it makes very much sense for my own classes.
I see. Okay, interesting. Okay. All right. So this article, and it's long. It's a long article.
Yes. So I have an app on my computer. We've talked about this before that removes pictures and advertisements and those things and lets you print. I'm at 23 pages for this article.
Yeah. Yeah. Though there are some nice illustrations in the article.
I actually didn't see the pictures.
They're impressive, but so maybe if you are interested, you can actually look it up on the web and see those. They're great. But
and we'll link the article in the show notes, obviously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so he begins by using the Tower of Babel, a good biblical picture, as a sort of metaphor for contemporary America. And he says, quote, "We are disoriented, unable to speak the same language or recognize the same truth. We are cut off from one another and from the past." And he ties a lot of that – we'll unpack this. He ties a lot of that to social media, and in particular, Twitter and Facebook.
Yep.
So a good portion of this article is trying to explain how Twitter and Facebook in particular have created to our current cultural dynamics in a profoundly negative way.
Mm-hmm.
And, so on the one hand, I think anybody who is familiar with those two platforms hears that and goes, well, yeah, of course. Duh.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's more than just this is awful. It's let me try to explain to you how we got there. And so we'll unpack that a little bit. But part of where he starts is trying to show how in the early days of the internet and chat rooms and even the early days of Facebook in particular, that social media was actually a positive force for democracy and for the sharing of ideas and even interaction about ideas, that those were good positive things that contributed to the larger conversation.
He even talks about how at the time there was some talk about how could a dictator stand against a united people who could communicate online without their censorship or influence.
Yeah, absolutely. And so John, what was the turning point then that Haidt points out in terms of what changes to Facebook and Twitter were made?
Yes.
That from Haidt's perspective was the definitive move that changed the way that social media worked and contributed to our larger public discourse.
The like and the retweet.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating? and then the share button on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
And why were those? Why is that bad? I mean, that on the surface of it, it's like, well, sure, that sounds innocuous, harmless. Why was that bad? Because there was actually one more piece to it wasn't just the addition of those things. There was one other behind the scenes thing with these platforms.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's you can count them. And they can take them and the algorithm that pushes them to the top and shows them, and it can allow people to go viral.
Yes.
So on another social media platform, think YouTube. Do you remember Double Rainbow Guy?
No.
Okay. This was viral probably when I was in seminary, maybe post-seminary, with a guy who is clearly high. And have you ever looked up at the sky and seen a rainbow and then seen like a second rainbow there?
Yeah, sure.
He starts screaming, double rainbow, all the way across the sky,
Okay.
And so it is kind of freaking out about it.
All right.
So that's one example of something that was really positive, or just fun. It was viral. But he also talks about how there were negative things if you make, if you say the wrong thing, if you do the wrong thing, then you absolutely get attacked in a bad viral way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I think that it's that combination of like and retweet or like and share plus the introduction of algorithms that would track popular posts and then try to determine why are they popular? Why are people liking these things? And what the algorithm discovers is the more emotional, the stronger the emotion that's embedded within the social media post, the more likely it is to go viral, the more likely it is to get liked and retweeted and shared and all that. And so what the platform does then is it pushes those to the top of your feed and highlights them for you. And so it spreads so that it also creates the he doesn't use this term explicitly, but the sort of the dopamine hit of like, oh wow, what, so that that change made a big difference then in how we as a culture consume and participate in social media.
By the way, I've heard a lot of interviews about this article. Like he's been making the circuits around. Did you know you can turn off Facebook's algorithm on your Twitter, or excuse me, Twitter's algorithm on your Twitter? So you just get like most recent by people you follow.
Oh yeah, I do that. Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. I need to spend some time on the app. I've turned off all notifications for it, so I don't spend nearly as much time as I used to on there.
It's up in the. You can either choose either the home or the late. It's called home, which is like that they control what pops up in what order, or just latest, which is just the sequential. These are the people you follow, and this is the order in which they were tweeted. And what's sneaky though is every so often Twitter will just change it. Like you can go in and set latest, and then like I think I've had to do this probably 3 or 4 times in the last year to 2 years where I've set it as I want latest.
Oh, interesting.
And then I open the app one day and it's like, wait a minute, that's out of order. What is this? Like, oh, it's on the home thing. Like, no, I don't want that. I want. So not only – so yeah, we give you the option, but we're going to try to steer you back to this to increase engagement with it.
Interesting.
I mean, the running joke between Kate and I is – well, let's check Twitter to see what we're supposed to be outraged by today.
Yeah.
Like, and it's true.
And without fail, there is something.
There's always something.
There's something. Yeah.
There's always something. Like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be angry about today. Excellent.
So, question for you. He continues the Tower of Babel metaphor throughout the piece.
Yeah.
Do you like the metaphor?
I do. I think it's helpful.
Were you a little thrown off that we have a Jewish atheist bringing up the Tower of Babel?
I mean, sure, but it's also it's transcended its biblical roots to becoming a cultural motif.
Sure. But I found it to be a helpful metaphor.
Yeah, I think it is. It's interesting that he points out. He says that really 2011 was kind of the high point of the what he calls the techno-democratic optimism, in which social media is a positive for democracy, and in particular highlighting the Arab Spring, where there were uprisings in different Arab countries protesting for greater democratic reforms and that sort of stuff.
He also mentions that's the year Google Translate comes out. Literally, kind of a strike against the Tower of Babel, the actual story. And
I want to get your thoughts on this. So this is kind of in his area, right? He says there are sort of stepping back to a sociological perspective. There are 3 major forces that bind a society. At least 3, he says. Social capital, in other words, extensive social networks with high levels of trust. Strong institutions, and then third, shared stories. And then he says social media has weakened all of those. Thoughts on that?
I think that's – I mean, is your question like has social media weakened all 3? Because I definitely think that's true.
That's part of it. But even just what about those 3 particular forces that bind a society? Do you think that that's an accurate assessment?
I think I want to tease out a little bit more social capital and shared stories. I definitely think strong institutions is a part of
my guess is that social capital probably includes family and friend networks, neighborhoods, communities, people that you know in person, trust them, are involved in their lives. We would say the church is a part of that, obviously.
Sure. But we would also say the church is the church an institution as well, from a societal perspective.
So yes, I mean, I think it hits both those categories.
Okay.
You know, and so I think that's interesting. The fact that I think he's probably onto something. That those 3 are at least major glue that holds a society together, and that social media is undermining that significantly.
Would you add anything to that? Would you add anything to those 3 things? Like I keep going like, well, would virtue be a part of that? Would that be in our shared stories though? I think that's where my mind –
my guess is he would probably lump shared stories lump that under shared stories in terms of who are we as a people, what do we value, what is important to us. I think my guess is he'd probably throw that in there.
Do you like those 3 things?
I do. I think that's – again, I'm not a sociologist, so I wouldn't that's not my area of expertise, but it seems to ring true to me. I can't immediately think of anything. As long as stories encompasses that idea, those sort of shared values, shared beliefs, shared priorities that shape a culture, then yeah, I can go with that. Let's see. There's so much in this article.
There's so much. I mean, I'm on to page 4 of 23.
Yes. He has an interesting quote in here. He says, once Twitter and Facebook in particular kind of redesigned their platforms with the like, the share, the retweet, all of that, as well as the algorithm, he says the newly tweaked platforms were almost perfectly designed to bring out our most moralistic and least reflective selves. The volume of outrage was shocking.
That's a great sentence.
Yeah.
That's a great sentence.
Yeah, I think and again, here's the point where we should probably say, I think you can use social media in a fruitful way as a Christian.
Sure.
I think there are numerous examples that I could point to where people are not giving you their latest hot take or here's something to be outraged by or this person is, Satan incarnate and no, you're Satan incarnate and
There's one journalist who I've started listening to and reading a bit more called Derek Thompson, and he describes Twitter specifically as a vast library with a food court on the first floor. Like if you're able to curate your follows, if you're able to I think Twitter has – I've heard a lot of people talk about Twitter list. I have not set one up where you could set up like I want to see from these people, here's where I go for this topic, here's where I go for this topic. That it's actually a pretty helpful place to see the nuances of a conversation. Yeah. But there's also a food fight in the on the first
for sure
as a way to get in.
Yeah.
And so I think it can be a helpful place for Christians. I think it could be a helpful place for society at some level.
Yeah.
However, there are drawbacks.
I would say so. Yes. Part of what he highlights in this article is he says that all those dynamics have undermined our trust in institutions in particular. And he has this quote here. He says, one result is that young people educated in the post-Babel era are less likely to arrive at a coherent story of who we are as a people and less likely to share any such story with those who attended different schools or who were educated in a different decade. You and I see that all the time.
Yeah.
As educators.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We see that in particular, I think, among college students. And even if they're not on Twitter, like it's just permeated our culture. It's absolutely penetrated every aspect of our culture in that. I think, again, it's the whole – it is easy and it is, fun to poke holes in institutions. It's easy pickings. Institutions are easy targets. Mm-hmm. But one of the points that comes out in this article is that a lot of what you see in terms of the protest movement is – he points out like Occupy Wall Street and other things where it's like the interest is just tear it all down with little, if any, reflection on, well, what do we build in its place?
Sure.
What replaces it?
Or even could this be tweaked in a way in order to make it better rather than burn it to the ground?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's kind of like people have latched on to the Joker from the Dark Knight trilogy yes. and have taken that persona in a more refined way, certainly, but have like, let's just burn it all down.
Yes. Yes. Some people just want to watch the world burn.
Some people just want to watch the world burn. That's a great line from that
movie.
Is. When was the last time you watched The Dark Knight?
Oh, it's been a while. I should go back and do it. Have you watched the new The Batman?
So that's on my post-graduation list of things to do.
Okay. I've heard it's the darkest one of it's the darkest version of Batman. I'm like, well, The Dark Knight was dark, obviously, but I've heard this is like next level dark.
So I've heard this is more of like my brother. So I got brunch with my brother this weekend down in North Carolina, and he had watched like an hour of it because he describes that's the way he watches movies and TV shows now because he has a child. Right, he gets like hour increments to watch things, and he has to build it up over several days.
Yeah.
So he watched the first hour of the new one. He goes, it's kind of getting into that detective sort of that 1920s. Is the word noir?
I think so.
Detective sort of feel.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we're at 35 minutes, and we're like, I think 7 pages of 23 in.
Yeah. Not even maybe halfway through some of the comments and notes I've made here. So you want to go another episode on this?
I think we need to do another episode next week on this.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
We're always looking for content.
We really are.
Until we have our next high-powered meeting that maps it out.
Yeah, with tacos where we both get sick. Yes. Do you remember that? Hard to forget. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right. Is that a good stopping point for us since we've
let me look at where we were just leaving off here. Burning down of institutions. Let me make a note here. I think that's a good. Let's tie it off there, and we'll pick it up like your brother does with movies.
Yeah, you get. This is life now. Yeah,
indeed.
When you get a Jonathan Haidt article, you got to break it up.
Yeah, 100% for sure. Okay, and we will put the link in the show notes, and there is an option I think that we can listen directly to the article from their website
for free. Yeah.
So, all right. Let's go with this day in sports history.
Yeah, so this day in sports history, 1970, the 24th NBA championship, the Knicks beat the Lakers 4-3.
That was it. Thrown in there for you, John.
I appreciate that. 1970. Good year. 79, the NFL draft, Ohio State linebacker. Tom, you're going to have to help me with that last name.
Cousineau,
first picked by the Bills, but signed instead with the Montreal, I don't know that team name.
Alouettes
for double the money.
The CFL. He turned again. Think about where that shows you where the NFL was at, right?
Yeah.
That he got double the money to go play in Canada. He did eventually end up in the NFL.
92, Eddie Murray, New York Met. Eddie Murray becomes the 24th player in the history of the MLB to hit 400 home runs.
Yeah, that seems like such a low number now.
It does.
Like if someone gets to 400, you're kind of like, yeah, that's nice.
You saw Miguel Cabrera. I believe this past week got to 3,000 hits.
Yes, we were watching him try to reach that level when we were at T4G,
and it took him a couple more games. Yeah,
yeah, yes, indeed. 3,000 hits. He already reached the 500 home run.
That's right.
Level. So that's
and that's rare.
That's rarefied
That's like
air.
Hank Aaron territory.
Yeah, for sure.
2000, the sport of geocaching, I struggle to call that a sport, begins with the first cache placed and the coordinates from a GPS posted on Usenet.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
Have you ever done geocaching?
I have not, but I know someone who was very into it.
I did it once or twice with some buddies, and basically, I mean, it was before smartphones, but basically you need like a little GPS thing, and you get coordinates, and you go and try to find it, and you find little trinkets in there, and you put your own trinkets in there.
Right.
It was like, okay, that was fun once.
Right. No. The person I'm thinking of was he and his wife very into it, and even had a map in one of the rooms in their house where they would like put a pin in places where they had found a geocache.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it still a thing? Do people still geocache?
I don't know. I mean, they must.
I would think the smartphone would do away with that, or Pokemon Go did away with that. That was the other thing I thought of.
Yeah.
Are we going to have Pokemon Go on this day in sports history now?
No, that was more for the kicks and giggles there.
Do you remember Pokemon Go? Do you remember this?
Yes.
So I was living in Winona Lake at that time, and I just remember like all these pasty white kids out walking around Winona Lake, and I'm just like, what the heck are they all coming from?
All staring at their phones.
Walking around the park.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yes, I agree with your assessment that is not a sport.
Yeah. 2018, Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan becomes the NFL's first $30 million per season player after agreeing to a $150 million contract extension.
Yeah. And now he's with the Colts.
Yeah, he just started with the Colts. So the Colts seem to be on a run of like, what old quarterback can we get that washed up somewhere else that we can just use until we figure out a long-term solution?
Now, I do think what I'm wondering is, so this year's draft class of quarterbacks was very thin.
Oh, it was bad.
Very thin.
I think the first one to go was was it the third?
No, Kenny Pickett from Pittsburgh went in the first round.
Did he?
But went like pick number like 20-ish or something like that.
Where'd he go? What?
I don't remember.
Okay.
So, but next year's quarterback class will include, in all likelihood, Bryce Young, quarterback from Alabama who won the Heisman Trophy.
Okay.
And C.J. Stroud from Ohio State who finished like third or fourth, finished fourth or whatever in the Heisman voting. So like 2 elite level quarterbacks will come out next year. So there'll be a little bit better talent there in that. So what do you want to go with here?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think we had the most conversation about geocaching.
Do you really want to go with that?
Not particularly, because I don't like it. Let's go. Could we go Knicks beating the Lakers? What do you like?
I don't have a strong pull towards any of them. I mean, the most humorous to me is the geocaching, but will we lose? We're
gonna hear about it. I think if we choose geocaching.
All right, you want to go Knicks Lakers?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do that. One thing you liked?
Spent the weekend in North Carolina. It was just a good time seeing a lot of family, seeing some friends, and flying back. And I landed in Chicago last night landed in Chicago at I think 10 p.m. local time. So it was a late night, and it was one of those. We had this moment where we got off the plane, we went to the carousel, and we were at the carousel for our luggage that was marked.
Yeah.
And we just stood there for 15 minutes. The bags weren't coming out. Somebody had to get on a loudspeaker and go, "Oh, sorry, actually, it's on this carousel over there." And we all went over there and all found our bags almost immediately.
Yeah.
It was a terrible situation. I was pretty mad at Midway.
Oh, you were in Midway.
We were in Midway.
Southwest.
We were Southwest. Yeah.
Okay, that must have been a cost-saving maneuver there.
Yeah. I usually look between Indy and Midway.
Gotcha. Okay. I see. All right, for me, I will give a shout-out to I had a book signing here on campus last week, and that was a lot of fun. It was a little embarrassing. It can feel a little awkward to have people talk about you in front of you like that in terms that you think, that just feels over the top to me.
Would you prefer a roast?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe. I'm not sure. But I'm very grateful to our dean, who is was really the driving force behind making that happen.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't you.
It was certainly not me. So it was fun to celebrate that, and we moved a decent number of books.
Yeah, I saw a lot of students getting after it.
That's right. So grateful for that, and I know it's called One Thing I Liked, but I'm going to go with the second one.
It's our pod.
It is. That's right. I mean, you went with one thing you didn't like last week, so you did
one thing we didn't like last week.
I 100% share that dislike, but
okay.
It was under your category. It was in your bucket.
It was, and I sprung it on you.
You did. Yeah, it was beautiful. I loved it. The other thing is my wife and I got to meet our oldest son's girlfriend for the first time this past weekend.
Oh, okay.
And she is a lovely young woman.
Okay, normal human being. That's always
yes.
That's always
the first check, right?
Yeah.
Is she normal? Yes. And she definitely passes the normal test.
Okay, good.
Yeah, she was delightful. So it was nice to meet her. I am grateful. Both of my sons, they are not drawn to the superficial, like flashy, like I love the fact that both of my sons are drawn towards substantive women who are beautiful both inside and outside. So grateful for that. All right. And she listens to the pod.
Really?
Yeah. Which might question the normal part. I know she's listened to a bunch of episodes. Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go. Shout out to her. We have talked NFL draft and lamented the death of 2 Ohio State careers.
You lamented. You lamented, not we. You lamented.
We have talked about how stupid the last 10 years of American life have been. And
we will continue to have that conversation.
There's so much stupidity, we have to do another episode on
the stupification. Yeah.
Indeed. We've talked about geocaching and, more importantly, the Knicks beating the Lakers in 1970 well before either of us were born. We talked about our trip to North Carolina, talked about a book signing, and I think by definition we have covered our various and sundry topics. And so all that's left to say is until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.